Welcome back to the bus. So today I wanted to get a better idea of what the floor plan is going to look like in here. I've done a bunch of cleanup work. I still have a few more things to take out, but I've moved some holding tanks in, and let's get an idea of where everything's going to sit. So for those of you who have been watching the channel for a while, you know that my original plan was to use that M820 as my expedition vehicle. I've decided against that primarily because of its inability to do highway speeds and some of the other things that military technology expects as far as having availability of a full service group with you when you're out running. It's just not the long distance, no maintenance kind of vehicle that I was looking for. So, this is what we have now. What I've done, as you've seen in previous videos, I took down all the ceiling panels and insulation. Got the majority of the wiring harness over to the side over here. There are a few wires like these that are going over to clearance lights on the other side. My intent is to move this wiring harness down below the chair rail. So down below that, and I'll probably remove a lot of it and redo it in something smaller. But we'll work on that over the course of time. So, back here, the few things that are left, and I've got most everything cleaned up in here. So here's where we're starting. So I had started to purchase some equipment for the other camper, and I purchased these knowing that they would fit in that particular camper and knowing that I needed a certain footprint. So for instance, this tank here was going to be my black tank. And it's wide, it's long, and it's thin, so it doesn't have a lot of vertical height to it. I did that on purpose because I was going to put the freshwater tank, which you see right there, on top of it. Well, now that I've got the bus, I don't need to do that. Granted, this width is not ideal, but I think it's going to work out okay. I'm going to be thickening the walls a little bit, and I think, based on that location, that's about where that's going to sit. So, that's still alright, and if I put the other one over here, I should be okay as far as a walking area between. Up front here, this is an 80-gallon freshwater tank. I wanted to set it sideways and try to center it a little bit if I could, just considering the fact that obviously this is the majority of the weight when it comes to getting out of wherever I might be with fresh supplies. So 80 gallons is about, what, 600 something pounds? So I didn't want that all sitting on one side. I wanted to center it a little bit more. But I also wanted to be able to walk around it. So plan will be the kitchen counter will extend out that direction. So I'm going to put you up on the tripod and start working on taping off some things. And we'll see if we can get things arranged a little bit. I think we have it, so let's go inside and take a look. Obviously this door is going to go. I'm going to swap it out for a more standard camping door. Alright, coming in this direction, over here to the left, this space is where the co-pilot seat will be. And there will be some space over here off to the side for sort of a counter or space to keep equipment. And then this will be on a swivel to be able to turn around and face back toward the living space. Over here, the driver's seat will also be on a swivel, allowing it to turn in this direction as well. So coming up this way should be plenty of room walking through. Over here behind the driver's seat is where the jackknife sofa will be. Haven't decided yet if it's going to be a jackknife or a futon, but whatever I can put in there to take up the least amount of space and still be able to fold down for bedding if I ever have anybody else in here. I put out tape for a 6-foot space, which is plenty large for an adult, and we should be good to go on that one. So, if you're sitting here, this is roughly what it'll look like looking across the bus. Over here, there's a freshwater tank. That's going to be hidden by an L-shaped kitchen counter, so you won't see that, obviously. Over here, the rectangle you see on the floor, that's the wood stove, so plenty far away, yet close enough to still produce ambiance. I figure this seat will probably angle toward the corner, and this one here will angle toward here, just to make it a little easier for anybody who's sitting here to sit and talk. Alright, around here I wanted to make sure I left plenty of space to walk around the wood stove even when it's lit, so there's definitely room for that. I might be able to add a fold-out counter on the side here, something small, or I might be able to do the same thing over here, I'm not entirely sure. On this end is where I want to put the cooktop. It's going to be a 2-burner diesel cooktop. I haven't quite decided yet, partially because I don't have the unit, how I want to access it. So this is wide enough that I could make it accessible from here if I wanted to, thus making it easier if there were ever 2 people cooking in this kitchen, for somebody to be working over there and somebody to be working here. I also considered the possibility of placing it here, accessible from the living area. The only thing I don't like about that is you're standing right next to your couch while you do it. So it does limit the ability for people to sit on the couch. So we'll see. I'm not quite sure exactly how that's going to sit. I think back in here behind it is where the countertop oven is going to go. That one should give me plenty of baking capability. I also have to find space for a microwave somewhere in here. Over here, this section where the table's currently sitting, I figure is going to be just prep space. Now, I built the counter, see if I can show it to you, see the blue tape on the floor? I built the counter width based on this holding tank, so I have to be able to clear it and cover it. So the kitchen counter is actually going to go all the way L-shaped from here, around this direction, and all the way to the end of this holding tank over here near the back of the fender. So you can see the blue tape on the ground right there. So over here, this is where the sink is going to sit. So I'm going to have a couple of windows in here, probably one there, and one over the prep space, just to make sure there's plenty of light coming in here. Like I said, I like to cook, I like to bake, so I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of room in here to do it. On the other side, we have a different holding tank. So this one is more flat, it's wider, and it's longer. This one holds a little bit less. I did turn it around with its dump valve toward the back, and I did that on purpose. I'll talk to you about that here in just a second. So over here, I'm planning on putting the refrigerator and freezer above this. It's an upright unit that'll sit right in here. I am doing a roof raise, so I'll have a little bit more vertical real estate to work with. I also have the countertop dishwasher that you saw in a previous video that I need to fit in here. I want to put in a National Luna fridge freezer unit as well to give me some extra freezer space, so that'll slide in somewhere down in here. I also have a washing machine that might be arriving at some point. It's small, but I still need to find a place to put it. So all of that is going to go over here if I can figure out how to play the Tetris properly. Back here, you can see there are 2 open spaces, there and there. So this is where the shower pan is going to sit. I'm using a recirculating shower, or that's my plan. Sitting down underneath this space is one of the underbody boxes. So I'm planning on using that for my recirculating shower plumbing. So that'll include the holding tank for it, the pump, and all the filters. Now obviously that means I'm going to have to insulate that box, but that's fine because that's all that's going in that box. I do have to raise this floor up a little bit in order to push that shower pan as close to the wall as I possibly can and try to clear over the top of the enclosure there for the fuel. Obviously, the roof raise will help with that, and that does mean that I'll have a little bit of a step up in here. Over on this side, this is where the toilet's going to sit. So I'm planning on using an incinerating toilet. I've talked about that a little bit in previous videos. It's probably going to sit right here with the back on this side pointed that direction. So I did this on purpose, again, looking at how the three layers of the bus interact and interface. Below this is where the condenser coils were for the old air conditioning units. It's where I'm currently building a mount for my propane tanks, which will be used for this toilet. So a nice short plumbing line to get up into this space. Up above here, you can see there's one of the escape hatches. So as I've talked about previously, roof real estate is a premium despite how big this bus is, because I want to put as much solar up here as I can. So that means any roof punctures or penetrations like chimneys have to happen next to these spaces here. So I want to push it as far forward as I can in this section of the roof, because back here over the top is going to be a rooftop deck. Granted, I won't be using the deck when the toilet's burning, but I also didn't want to have the chimney right next to it just in case there was any possibility that any kind of a spark or coal could get out that way. So, bathroom there. Back here, this is where the bed's going to be. It'll be a standard queen sitting sideways. This is a little bit longer side to side than it needs to be for the bed, so it does give me the ability to have a bit of a headboard space, probably over there, and maybe some cabinetry as well. I'm planning on putting in a window at both the head and the foot of the bed, giving me the ability to get a cross breeze, and I can always open one of those and turn on the max fan to draw air through if necessary. Back here on the other side, you can see the other tape line. That's going to be the back of the bed. And the space behind it back there will be my garage. It's about 1 foot 9 inches or so from front to back, obviously the full width and the full height of the bus. I'm planning on leaving those side windows in place. I might cover over the windows on the back door, I'm not entirely sure, or I might leave them alone. I did want a fully insulated wall in here though, so there won't be any access to that rear section from the bed. Now what's going under the bed? Obviously it's going to be elevated and there's a lot of real estate here. So this is the space that I'm going to be using for my battery bank, my inverters, and my charge controllers. So my hope is this section right here in the middle, I want to put a drawer set in here that I can pull forward and out to use for clothing storage. I can go pretty deep with that if I want to, and then all the leftover space will be all the rest of that equipment. This bus is going to have a pretty big battery bank, much larger than you would normally see in something this size, and I've got reasons for doing that I'll talk to you about in future videos. But hopefully there's going to be enough space here. Again, got to play some Tetris. So, if we come forward, you have to deal with plumbing. Another place where multiple layers of the bus interface, right here. So here, this window where I've got the heater currently mounted, right down under there is another one of the underbody boxes. That's where I've got a 20-gallon gray tank mounted. Now I'm planning on putting these two gray tanks inside the bus so I can use them as water storage when I'm in colder climates. And then in warmer climates or when I'm ready to dump the system, I can drain them down into the lower tank and then drain it out the side of the bus using a macerator pump. So, how do you get drainage from in here to over there? Here's the plan. This one should be pretty easy. This one is sitting up at the height of the fender, so it's sitting up pretty tall. I can just bring that line out and turn down straight into the box and dump it straight into the tank. That one's going to be no problem at all. This one here is going to be a little bit more of a problem, just because I have to run that line a little bit further. Now I certainly could run the line underneath the bus, but here's the problem. The fuel tank sits right behind the fenders here and goes right down the middle, and it's tucked right up against the body underneath, so there's really no room to run plumbing between them. At least not a dump line like this. So I kind of need to keep the dump line inside the bus. So, what can I do about that? Well, I need to raise that floor height a little bit anyway, in order to push the shower pan back toward the wall. I can do the same thing over here, no problem. So if I was to make a step right across here where those two come together, I can make sure that the two line up, or make sure the step is where it needs to be, and then raise this whole section all the way across. All I need to do is go up about a couple of inches, just high enough. That should give me the ability to clear a dump line going in that direction. Obviously, I'll need to have some kind of a pump to be able to move the waste from this tank all the way across here. It then has to go forward, across, and down. So here I currently have this wall running right up against the fender. Now I could easily pull it out toward the walkway just a couple of inches again to be able to clear that line going forward down through here. I can make it easy to get to, so if I ever have problems with the line, I can pull it out, remove it. I can have the bottom section of the wall removable just to make it easy to get in there. And again, at some point I can put in a pump, probably here or down here next to the shower. But in either case, I should be able to drain this tank down pretty easily. If we go up here, I can easily put my filler in here. It just has to be higher than the side of the tank, which is fine, because if I look at this, you see where that is. So it's well below the window line, which means I can very easily put my filler spout in and be well above that tank. There's a vent line here as well, so as long as I'm at about this position or higher, I should be perfectly fine. I won't have any trouble with air bubbles or anything else in here. The other place where multiple layers have to interface is up here. So there's the wood stove. If we look straight up from there, you can see we're at another escape hatch. So this one's the one that's going to get the max fan in place of the escape hatch. Again, the real estate that I have available on the roof is on both sides of these hatches. So this one, that's sitting a little bit toward the front, and again, I did that on purpose to try to make as much space here for walking around it as I could. And the chimney will go straight up and out right about there. That's far enough away from the deck, there's no way it could possibly dump any kind of a cinder onto it. And the solar panels on both sides should be pretty resistant to it. Obviously I'll have a spark arrestor cap on top as well. So let's go back and take a look at the back of the bus. So back here, this is the garage. Though it's not large, at least it's not deep, and it's easy to reach all the way across from here, and I certainly could climb in here if I needed to. There is enough room to work around in here. I can put hangers on both sides. This would be a great place to put anything small and electric that I need to recharge, so small battery banks, tools. I could put in my folding electric bike. I could certainly put in my paramotor if I want to. There's enough room in here for that. I can also, if someday I upgrade to an electric paramotor, I can charge it inside the bus, which is nice. I wanted to have this space that was accessible from the back door, but not accessible from the coach itself. The other piece behind this, I talked about the battery bank. Obviously, it's nice to have the battery so close to the back because I'm planning on converting a couple of my vehicles to electric. So having that gives me the ability to run a separate power inverter off the battery bank, put outlets inside this space, and I can put outlets out here as well, down in there where the numbering used to be, which will give me easy access for running an electric vehicle charger for something that might be sitting on the trailer. So here we stand. I think that's where I want the floor plan to be. I'm going to leave it like this for a little while just to kind of get used to it and see how it feels. And please feel free to leave any comments or questions you might have. I'll see you over the next horizon.